Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something really fascinating.
Yeah.
The science of meditation.
Yeah, it's really...
We got all these research papers and articles. Some are looking at, biological mechanisms, and others exploring its potential for, mental health issues.
It's a really captivating field, right? We're kind of moving beyond just the, acknowledging the benefits, but really delving into the how and the why.
Exactly.
And the tangible ways that it actually impacts our brains and our bodies.
Exactly. We're going beyond just anecdotal evidence and looking at hard science here. So
Yeah.
let's just start with the basics. What exactly are we even talking about when we say, meditation?
Right.
I feel like there's so many different definitions floating around out there.
You're absolutely right. And even the sources that we have highlight that there is no single universally accepted definition. But what's interesting is that despite this variety of techniques, right, they all kind of share this common thread of cultivating attention and awareness.
Okay, so it's more about the underlying mental process than the specific method you might be using.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of our sources break down these techniques into different categories. So you have focused attention, open monitoring, and then mindfulness meditation.
Can you walk us through each of those a little bit? What are the key differences?
Sure. So think of focused attention as kind of like a mental workout for your concentration.
Okay.
You're choosing a specific object, like your breath, for example, and training your mind to stay fixed on it, right?
Yeah.
And if your attention drifts, you gently guide it back.
Okay.
So it's like strengthening a muscle.
So very much about discipline and control.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what about open monitoring?
Open monitoring is more about cultivating a receptive awareness.
Okay.
So instead of narrowing your focus, you're simply observing whatever arises in your experience.
Okay.
So that could be thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, but without judgment. So you're just becoming this neutral observer.
Interesting. Okay, and then where does mindfulness meditation kind of fit in with all of this?
So mindfulness kind of draws from both of those.
Okay.
Focused attention and open monitoring.
Okay.
So it's about paying attention to the present moment with an attitude of curiosity and acceptance.
Okay.
So it encourages us to just be present with our experiences, but without getting swept away by them.
Right, yeah. Okay, well now, meditation has been around for centuries, obviously, particularly in Eastern traditions like Buddhism. We have one of our sources that kind of delves into that perspective. What are some of the key insights that we can learn from that viewpoint?
So from the Buddhist perspective, meditation is really about cultivating wholesome qualities in the mind, leading to greater well-being and wisdom. And they really emphasize two main goals.
Okay.
Tranquility, which kind of aligns with that focused attention that we were talking about, insight, which involves developing a deeper understanding of the nature of reality.
That makes sense. And they have kind of a unique view of the mind itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is that?
They use this term citta to describe the mind. And they see it as something that's constantly changing, fluid, and it's not to be mistaken for a fixed self or a soul.
Interesting.
So it's this understanding that allows for the potential for transformation through meditation.
So we're not trying to solidify our mind.
Yeah.
We're trying to understand its ever-changing nature.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's get into the science of all of this.
Yeah.
How does this ancient practice affect our modern brains?
Right.
That's what I'm really curious about.
This is where it gets fascinating. Research is revealing that meditation can induce structural changes in the brain.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking about actual physical alterations in different regions.
Physical changes. So it's not just about feeling calmer in the moment. It's actually rewiring our brain.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Okay, so what specific areas of the brain are we talking about?
So the research points to 8 key regions.
Okay.
The frontal cortex, sensory cortex, insula, hippocampus anterior, and medial cingulate cortex, orbitofrontal cortex, upper longitudinal bundle, and corpus callosum.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Can we break down how meditation impacts a few of those?
Sure.
Let's start with the frontal cortex. What does that do?
So the frontal cortex is kind of like our command center, right?
All right.
It's responsible for higher level thinking, planning, and decision making.
Okay.
And studies have shown that meditation can increase gray matter, volume, and density in this region.
Okay.
Which essentially means you have more brain cells and connections.
Okay.
And this can lead to improved focus, better emotional regulation, and enhanced cognitive flexibility.
So we're essentially sharpening our mental toolkit.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, what about the hippocampus?
Sure.
I know that that's linked to memory.
Absolutely. You're right. The hippocampus is kind of like our memory hub.
Yeah.
And fascinatingly, research has found that meditation can actually enhance hippocampal volume,
Wow.
which may contribute to improved memory function and potentially even protect against age-related decline.
Wow, that's promising. Are there any other notable study findings related to how meditation kind of affects these specific brain regions?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, research has shown that meditation strengthens the functional connectivity between different brain regions,
Okay.
meaning they can communicate and work together more efficiently.
Okay.
So it's like improving the communication network within your brain, allowing for smoother and more integrated processing.
So all of these separate parts of the brain start working together more harmoniously.
Exact.
It's like a symphony instead of just individual instruments playing at random.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
Yeah. Another intriguing finding involves something called the default mode network,
Okay.
or the DMN.
I've heard of the DMN. I'm a little fuzzy on what that actually is.
Okay, so think of the DMN as kind of your brain's autopilot mode. So it's active when you're daydreaming, mind wandering, or kind of lost in thought.
Right.
And it's important for self-reflection.
Okay.
But excessive DMN activity can actually contribute to rumination anxiety and difficulty focusing.
So that's the part of my brain that's always like replaying embarrassing moments from the past or like worrying about the future.
Exactly. And so research suggests that meditation can actually attenuate DMN activity,
Okay.
leading to improved focus, greater self-awareness, and a greater sense of presence in the moment.
So you're training your mind to kind of step out of that autopilot mode and become more intentional with your attention.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And that's just the beginning of how meditation rewires our brains.
Okay.
The thing is, these benefits extend far beyond the confines of our skull.
Oh, okay. You've got my attention.
Yeah.
So how does meditation impact the rest of the body then?
Well, let's start with the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
You know, the ANS, the system that controls all those automatic functions like breathing and heart rate and digestion.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation has a really profound impact on the ANS, particularly when we look at heart rate and heart rate variability as biomarkers.
Biomarkers, so those are like measurable indicators of what's
Yeah.
going on inside the body.
Yeah,
Like clues to kind of reveal the inner workings of our system.
exactly.
Yeah.
And heart rate, or HR, is a really simple but powerful biomarker reflecting the activity of our sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
You know, that fight or flight response.
Right.
So when we're stressed, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in, our
Right.
heart rate increases.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does heart rate variability fit into all of this?
Right, so heart rate variability, or HRV, is a measure of the subtle variations in time between our heartbeats.
Okay.
It reflects the balance between our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems.
Okay.
So the parasympathetic nervous system is like the rest and digest system. It's all about promoting relaxation and recovery.
Okay, so a higher HRV would indicate a more relaxed and balanced state.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And here's the really fascinating part. Research indicates that meditation actually enhances autonomic nerve function, increasing parasympathetic activity
Wow.
and decreasing sympathetic innervation.
So it's like meditation is training our nervous system to be more resilient and adaptable.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow. So we're not just calming our minds, we're actually improving the efficiency of our body's stress response system.
Exactly.
It's almost like meditation is giving our nervous system an upgrade.
Yeah, and this shift towards a more balanced nervous system has ripple effects throughout the body.
Okay.
Studies have linked prolonged meditation practice to better stress regulation,
Mm-hmm.
improved sleep quality,
Okay.
enhanced emotional balance, and even a strengthened immune system.
Okay, well, speaking of the immune system, one of our sources talks about how meditation affects inflammation in the body,
Right.
specifically mentioning inflammatory cytokines.
Mhm.
Can you shed some light on what those are and how meditation plays a role in all of this?
Sure, so cytokines are basically signaling molecules that orchestrate our immune response. They help regulate inflammation, which is our body's natural defense against injury or infection.
So they're like the messengers of the immune system,
Exactly.
communicating between different cells and tissues.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that research is suggesting that meditation can actually modulate the expression of these inflammatory cytokines.
Wow.
So, for example, studies have shown that mindfulness-based stress reduction can prevent a decrease in IL-10, which is an anti-inflammatory cytokine,
Okay.
in patients with fibromyalgia.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So meditation might actually be able to help manage those chronic pain conditions like fibromyalgia by influencing these very molecules.
That's the current thinking. Yeah, but it's important to remember that research is still kind of unfolding in this area.
Yeah, of course.
Other studies have found links between mindfulness practices and lower levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines,
Okay.
like IL-6 and TNF-α.
Okay.
However, it's not just a simple on-off switch.
Right.
Meditation's effects on cytokines can be complex and context-dependent, sometimes promoting inflammation and sometimes suppressing it based on the situation.
So it sounds like we're just scratching the surface of understanding the intricacies of how meditation really interacts with our immune system.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get ready for this one. Our sources then delve into something called epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is that, and how does meditation fit into this fascinating field?
All right, so prepare to enter the world of gene expression.
Okay.
Epigenetics is the study of how our behaviors and our environment can actually influence the way our genes work.
Okay.
It's like this layer of control on top of our DNA
Wow.
that can switch genes on or off or even fine-tune their activity levels.
Wait, so our lifestyle choices can actually modify how our genes function.
That's what the research is suggesting.
That's incredible.
It really is. It's revolutionizing how we think about health and disease.
Wow.
And what's remarkable is that research is also suggesting that long-term meditation practice can actually modulate epigenetics
Okay.
and promote health-related gene expression.
So we're not just changing our minds, we're potentially influencing the very blueprint of our biology.
Yeah.
Can you give us like an example of what this looks like in practice?
Sure. So one study found that expert meditators exhibited changes in histone modification and chromatin-regulated gene expression
Okay.
after meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So histones are proteins that help package our DNA.
Okay.
And chromatin is that complex of DNA and proteins that makes up our chromosomes.
So meditation is somehow influencing the way our DNA is organized and accessed.
That's what it seems like.
That's mind-boggling. What are the implications of this epigenetic influence?
Well, the implications are vast. It means that meditation could potentially impact everything from our mental and physical health to our aging process.
Wow.
Which brings us to another really fascinating area of research, telomere biology.
Ah, telomeres.
Yeah.
I've heard that term before, but I need a refresher.
Okay.
Can you remind me what those are and why they're so important?
Sure. So telomeres are like the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes.
Okay.
They play a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of our DNA during cell division.
Yeah?
Think of them like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces that prevent them from fraying.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So as our cells divide and replicate, telomeres help ensure that our DNA stays intact.
Exactly.
What happens when those telomeres get too short?
Well, as we age, our telomeres naturally shorten.
Okay.
And this shortening is accelerated by stress, unhealthy lifestyle choices, and chronic diseases.
Okay.
When telomeres become critically short, cells can no longer divide properly, leading to cellular aging and dysfunction.
So telomere length is essentially a marker of biological aging.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the connection between all of this and meditation?
Here's where it gets exciting.
Okay.
Research has linked meditation practice to increased telomerase activity.
Okay.
So telomerase is the enzyme responsible for maintaining telomere length.
Okay.
And some studies have even found that meditation may actually increase telomere length.
Hold on, so meditation might be able to actually slow down the aging process at a cellular level.
It's a fascinating area of research with really significant implications for healthy aging and longevity.
Wow.
While more studies are needed to fully understand these connections, the evidence so far suggests that meditation may have protective effects on our telomeres, potentially slowing down that cellular aging process.
So we're not just talking about feeling younger, we're talking about potentially protecting ourselves from the ravages of time.
Yeah.
Like meditation is a cellular fountain of youth.
Right.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Can we just quickly recap the key ways that meditation is impacting the body beyond the brain?
Absolutely. So we've seen that meditation can enhance autonomic nerve function, leading to a more balanced and resilient stress response system. It can modulate the expression of inflammatory cytokines, potentially influencing our immune responses and managing inflammation.
Right.
And it may even impact epigenetics and telomere biology, potentially influencing gene expression and slowing down the aging process at a cellular level.
That's a pretty impressive list of benefits.
Yeah.
It really highlights that interconnectedness of our mind and our body, and how meditation seems to have this positive influence on like multiple levels.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the therapeutic applications of meditation.
Okay.
Which we can explore more deeply. And how meditation is actually being integrated into clinical settings to help people facing a range of mental health challenges.
Yeah. That's right. We have a source here that dives into how meditation is being used for folks that are dealing with like major depressive disorders, substance-related and addiction disorders, PTSD, ADHD, and even schizophrenia.
Right.
It's inspiring to see this ancient practice kind of being embraced by modern medicine.
Yeah, it speaks to the growing recognition of that mind-body connection
Right.
and the power of these mindfulness-based approaches.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with major depressive disorders.
Okay.
How is meditation being utilized to help individuals that are struggling with depression?
So mindfulness-based interventions, or MBIs, are commonly used, along with body-mind techniques like Tai Chi and yoga. These approaches encourage individuals to become more aware of their thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations, but without judgment.
Okay.
And this fosters a sense of acceptance and self-compassion.
So it's about shifting from a place of like self-criticism and rumination to kind of a space of greater awareness and kindness towards yourself.
Precisely.
Okay, and what does the research say about all of this?
Researchers encouraging studies have shown that MBIs can be as effective as antidepressants
Wow.
for treating acute depression and even more effective in preventing relapse.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool for managing this complex condition.
That's remarkable. Okay, well, what about substance-related and addiction disorders?
Right.
How does meditation fit into that picture?
So two approaches have gained significant traction:
Okay.
mindfulness-based relapse prevention, or MBRP,
Right.
and acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT.
Okay.
Both focus on empowering individuals to develop a greater awareness of their cravings and triggers, equipping them with coping mechanisms to manage those urges without resorting to substance use.
So instead of trying to suppress or ignore those cravings, it's about learning to navigate them skillfully.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so MBRP helps individuals cultivate mindfulness skills to observe their cravings without judgment, while ACT encourages them to accept those cravings as part of their experience, but focusing on their values and goals.
Okay.
So both of these approaches provide a kind of roadmap for navigating that challenging terrain of addiction recovery.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Well, PTSD is another area where meditation seems to hold a lot of promise. It's a particularly challenging condition, often accompanied by intrusive thoughts and flashbacks and this heightened anxiety.
Right.
How can meditation help individuals that have experienced trauma?
Several techniques have shown potential in this area,
Okay.
including transcendental meditation, Sudarshan Kriya Yoga,
Okay.
and mindfulness-based interventions.
Yeah, wait.
And the research suggests that these practices can help reduce PTSD symptoms, including intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, avoidance behaviors, and hyperarousal.
It seems like meditation offers tools for regulating the nervous system and kind of processing that trauma in a safe and supportive way.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, by calming the nervous system and cultivating that sense of presence, meditation can help individuals manage those really intense emotional and physiological responses that are associated with PTSD.
Right.
And there's even evidence suggesting it can reduce alcohol and drug abuse among veterans with PTSD,
Wow.
which is a common co-occurring issue.
Right. And we also have ADHD and schizophrenia on our list here. These are very different conditions.
Yeah.
Yet meditation seems to have applications in both. Is it being used in similar ways?
Not exactly. So for ADHD, the focus is often on improving attention and focus,
Okay.
reducing impulsivity, and managing emotional dysregulation.
Okay.
And mindfulness-based interventions have shown promise in helping adults with ADHD enhance their attention, working memory, and executive functioning.
So it's about strengthening the brain's capacity for sustained attention and impulse control,
Exactly.
which are often challenges for those individuals.
Exactly.
Okay, and what about for schizophrenia?
So for schizophrenia, the research is still in its early stages, but some studies suggest that mindfulness-based interventions and ACT can help reduce symptoms,
Okay.
like hallucinations, delusions, anxiety, and depression.
It seems kind of counterintuitive that focusing inward could help with conditions like hallucinations and delusions. How does that work?
It's not about eliminating those experiences, but rather about changing one's relationship to them.
Okay.
Mindfulness-based approaches can help individuals develop a more accepting and compassionate stance towards those experiences,
Okay.
reducing the fear and distress that they often evoke.
So it's about recognizing that those experiences are part of their reality, but they don't have to control their lives.
Exactly. It's
And
about fostering that sense of agency and empowerment in the face of these challenging mental health conditions.
It's truly remarkable to witness these expanding applications of meditation for addressing mental health.
It is.
But it's important to note that research is ongoing.
Absolutely.
And meditation should not be considered a replacement for professional treatment.
Right. It's crucial for individuals to work with qualified mental health professionals who can provide appropriate guidance and support tailored to their unique needs.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the science of meditation, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, we've seen that meditation is far more than just a relaxation technique.
Right.
It's a practice with the potential to profoundly impact our brains, our bodies, and our overall well-being.
Yeah.
From enhancing cognitive function and emotional regulation to influencing gene expression and potentially slowing down the aging process.
Wow.
Meditation offers a wealth of benefits that are increasingly supported by scientific research.
Yeah, it's like we're unlocking this hidden potential of our minds and bodies through this ancient practice.
Exactly, and that brings us to a thought-provoking question for our listeners to ponder.
Okay, I like it.
If meditation can alter our biology so profoundly, what does that tell us about the untapped power of our minds to shape our health and well-being?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the science of meditation. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.